Okay, we are live. So now for the first of the three chapters about Yom Kippur, let us begin.
Okay.
The Rambam starts by introducing the laws. He says that there are 12 mitzvahs. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. This is for Yom Tov. We're not up to Yom Tov yet. Let's first focus on Yom Kippur. Here we go. So there are four mitzvahs relating to Yom Kippur, two positive and two negative, and the two positives and negatives mirror each other. So the first mitzvah is to rest on this day, or in the Hebrew, lishbos by mibalacha, to rest from work, from malacha, as we've spoken in the laws of Shabbos, what exactly malacha means. That's a positive, actively rest, which is an interesting positive command because usually a positive is to do something, and resting is not really so active. But I'm sure the commentaries discuss this a lot, that resting from work is not just refraining from work, but there's almost like a positive movement towards rest from work. And then the flip side of that is not to work, not to do malachos. And then again, to fast on this day, it's a positive mitzvah to fast. And then the flip side of that, the negative commandment is not to eat or drink. So as far as the WhatsApp that went out, those are the four mitzvahs of Yom Kippur. So let's learn a little bit about each of these mitzvahs. So they'll be discussed in the next three chapters. So for starters, it's a positive commandment to refrain from, where are we? Here we are. From all work on the 10th day of the 7th month. As the Torah says, it shall be a Shabbos of Shabboses for you. Shabbos, Shabbosai, Yelachem. So it's Shabbos of all Shabboses. Anyone who performs a forbidden labor negates the positive command because the command is to rest and he did not rest, and violates negative command which says don't do malacha, don't work, you shall not perform any labor. Okay, what is the punishment? So interestingly, the punishment of Yom Kippur is not as severe as Shabbos. So, you have many Jews that one day a year, and for it's wonderful, that particular to keep Yom Kippur in its entirety and all. I guess it is, Yom Kippur certainly has something unique about it. But interestingly, the punishment for doing work on Shabbos is more severe than that of Yom Kippur.
Mm.
So if he did something intentionally as a conscious act of defiance, and he was warned that would include, then he is liable for kares, which means it's a spiritual excision. That is, the Shabbat is somewhat cut off from Hashem. And as opposed to for Shabbos, it would be the death penalty. So for violating Shabbos intentionally with warning is, in the times of the temple, would give the death penalty, while Yom Kippur is only kares. If he performs a forbidden labor by mistake, then just like Shabbos, he would bring a korban chatos, a sin offering. Okay. Now, what constitutes a malacha? So it's just like Shabbos. Whatever malacha, whatever forbidden labors, whatever malachas, which one is liable to be executed or stoned for performing them on Shabbos, will now cause him to instead to be liable for kares on Yom Kippur. Any activity that incurs the obligation of a chatos, of a sin offering on Shabbos, would now incur also a sin offering on Yom Kippur. So whatever is not allowed on Shabbos, as far as malacha is concerned, that is what's not allowed on Yom Kippur. Any activity that is forbidden to be performed on Shabbos, even if it's not a malacha, would also be forbidden on Yom Kippur. So that would be anything, I guess, that's rabbinic, such as muktzah. If one performs such an act, one is punished with stripes of rebellion, which is something that a person would receive lashes, but for a different type of lashes of rebellion, meaning for going against the words of the sages, just like it would be on Shabbos. Whatever a person is not allowed to carry on Shabbos, as we learned a lot about that, cannot be carried on Yom Kippur. Whatever you're not allowed to talk about on Shabbos or do at the outset of Shabbos is also forbidden on Yom Kippur. The general principle is that there is no difference between Shabbos and Yom Kippur in this regard, except that a person who willfully performs a forbidden labor on Shabbos is liable for execution by stoning to death. Again, this would be if it was with warning in temple times, as opposed to on Yom Kippur, such a person receives kares, not the death penalty, as we just discussed. Okay, so that was pretty much the first two mitzvahs, which is to rest from work and not to do work. And now we come to halacha 4, which is going to be another mitzvah, which is to fast. And number 3 is kind of the joining of that, because we just said that whatever you can't do on Shabbos, you can't do on Yom Kippur. Now, one of the things you're not allowed to do on Shabbos is prepare from Shabbos to the weekday. So I once was scheduled to fly. I was coming back from New York. I was flying with my sister. I was maybe about 10 years old. And our flight in the airport, there was delays. And our flight from New York to London was delayed by about 4 hours. And by the time our flight arrived in Heathrow Airport, we just missed the connection from London to Johannesburg, which meant that we would have to, we were going to fly out of London on Thursday night, but we missed it. So, and the next flight would only be in the morning, which would mean if we left London Friday morning, we would arrive on Shabbos. So we had to stay Shabbos in the airport. They put us up with a lot of fights, but they put us up in the hotel over there. And it was a long story beyond the scope of this class. But what I will tell you is that they sent in a member of the airline to help us. We were young, we were minors. I mean, we were unaccompanied minors. So they sent somebody in to make sure that we came straight to the flight that was leaving right after Shabbos. And we had told them that we can't do anything until Shabbos ends. I don't know what time Shabbos ended, when Shabbos ended at the time, but it was in the summer. So Shabbos probably only went out at like 8 o'clock. I would have probably, or even later, maybe 9 o'clock. And 10 minutes before Shabbos was over, the flight attendant arrived. Okay. Now, we just had the last 24 hours of Shabbos. Over the duration of Shabbos, we opened up all our suitcases, and we set up the plane food. We had our stuff was all over the hotel room. And she walked inside and she said, "Okay, it's time to go." And we said, "We can't do anything." And she just looked around and she saw the open suitcases and, "Sorry, it's Shabbos. Just close the suitcase. We can't. It's Shabbos. You're not allowed to prepare from Shabbos to the weekday." And so she actually tried to scare us. She quickly dialed from the phone. It was before cell phone days. And she said, "I think we need to call in the police over here. I have these 2 unaccompanied minors that are refusing to leave the hotel room. But under no circumstances can a person prepare from Shabbos to the weekday." So the halacha was that on Yom Kippur an exception was made. Since people are fasting, they would be allowed to start preparing the food in the afternoon to break the fast. Okay, I don't know if today that exists, that people already on the afternoon of Yom Kippur are going home and getting ready for the breakfast. So we'll see that originally this was allowed, obviously provided that you're not actually doing something that's forbidden. The prohibition is only as far as preparing from Yom Tov to the weekday. But subsequently, this became, the universal custom was not even to do that. So let's see that inside. It is permitted to trim a vegetable on the day of Yom Kippur from mid-afternoon, which is at around 3 p.m., 3:30 onwards. What is meant by trimming a vegetable? To remove the wilted leaves and to cut the others to prepare them for consumption. This is discussed in the Gemara, but there's different opinions of what it means exactly to prepare the vegetables. You would be allowed to crack open nuts and to open pomegranates on Yom Kippur from mid-afternoon onwards. These leniencies were granted so that it won't be too rough on the PSO. So he's fasting after all, and if you're going to have to start preparing the food only after Yom Kippur is over, then that's going to be rough. So already you can start preparing from Yom Kippur to the weekday so that you will not have to wait once the fast is over. However, when Yom Kippur falls on Shabbos, this is forbidden. You can't trim the vegetables, open the nuts and pomegranates the entire day. It's because when it comes to Shabbos, Shabbos is Shabbos. And we didn't want people to start thinking, well, if I was able to do it on the Shabbos of Yom Kippur, I could do it on other Shabbosim too. However, it has already become a universal accepted custom in Bavel and in North Africa not to perform these activities during the fast. Instead, Yom Kippur is observed as the Shabbos is with regard to all its particulars. So we actually are particular on Yom Kippur as well, not to prepare from Yom Kippur to the rest of the week. So we've covered the first two mitzvahs, which is resting from work and not working. What about fasting? So there's another positive commandment in Yom Kippur, to refrain from eating and drinking. Ooh, I don't like that translation. I want to see the Hebrew. Lishbois, I prefer that. Lishbois means to rest from eating and drinking. Because when he says to refrain, that would be the negative command. It's a positive command. The positive command is to rest from eating and drinking. As the Torah says, you shall afflict your souls. According to the oral tradition, it has been taught. What does it mean to afflict one's soul? It means to fast. So that's the positive. Whoever fasts on this day fulfills the mitzvah, the positive command. If a person eats or drinks on this day, he both negates this positive mitzvah and violates the negative mitzvah. As the Torah says, any soul that does not afflict itself will be cut off. And if the punishment is to receive kares, then obviously it means that it's not allowed. The person who eats or drinks accidentally is liable to bring a chatos, sin offering, as is the case of any sin that a person does by mistake, or at least most sins. Similarly, so that was his part. These are the four mitzvahs. We've covered resting from work, don't work, fast, and don't eat. But we'll see that oral tradition has it that when we speak about afflicting ourselves, it's not only talking about eating and drinking, but it's talking about a number of other things as well. So according to oral tradition, it has been taught that it's forbidden to wash, anoint oneself, wear shoes, or engage in sexual relations. There's a mitzvah to refrain from these activities in the same way one refrains from eating and drinking. What do the rabbis learn from the term Shabbos Shabbosai, the Shabbos of Shabboses? One Shabbos means don't eat. A Shabbos of Shabboses means don't do these activities either. Those extra words come to teach us that there's something more involved. However, one is only liable for kares or sin offering if he ate or drank. If one did the other forbidden activities, washing, anointing, leather shoes, or sexual relations, then one would only receive the stripes of rebellion, which means it's more rabbinic in nature. Okay, here's an interesting one, which is that on Yom Kippur, there's an added mitzvah to add to the day, meaning start Yom Kippur a little early and end it a little bit late. And then we'll see a little lesson about shalom bayis in the halacha number 7. Just as the obligation to refrain from work applies both during the day and night, so too, refraining from all the other things is also day and night. And it's obligatory to add time from the Monday, the weekday, to the sacred, to Yom Tov, both when it starts and ends. As the Torah says, and you shall afflict your souls on the 9th of the month in the evening. Why does it say on the 9th of the month in the evening? So it says the 9th and not just the 10th to tell us that one should already begin fasting and afflicting oneself already in the afternoon of the 9th, meaning that we start Yom Kippur a few minutes before sunset. So too, at the end of the holiday, one should prolong the affliction slightly, entering the night of the 11th, which follows the 10th. Like the Torah says, from evening to evening, you shall keep this day of refraining, implying that it goes into the next evening. Now, a little lesson about shalom bayis. When women eat and drink after nightfall, so the stars have already come out, but they didn't add those extra few minutes. Without knowing that we are obligated to add time from the weekday to Shabbos, don't rebuke them. Don't say anything. Why not? Because they might just do it anyhow. And you'd rather them do it unintentionally than do it intentionally. And listen to this. It is impossible for there to be a policeman in every person's house to warn his wives. Thus, it is preferable to let the situation remain as it is so that they will transgress unintentionally instead of intentionally. The same principles apply in other similar instances. We are not meant to be policemen. And so if we know that we are not going to be heard, then we should rather keep our mouth shut. Thanks so much for joining and wishing you a wonderful evening and a wonderful Shabbos.